So, next, what exactly is mindfulness? Pretty good place to start, really, isn't it? Mindfulness is defined as the intentional, accepting, and non-judgmental focus of one's attention on the emotions, thoughts, and sensations occurring in the present moment. So there's a lot of words really to take in there, a lot of different concepts and ideas. So if we just kind of break it down, so it's the intentional. So the idea is that mindfulness is conscious, that we're making a conscious, intentional decision to engage in what is called mindfulness. Accepting, so it's about learning to be in the moment and accepting things just as they are. Non-judgmental, and that's a really important part of all of this because it's about realizing that when you're practicing mindfulness or trying to live in a mindful way at some point in your day, that it isn't about getting it right or wrong or judging what you're thinking or feeling during that time. It's about really kind of coming at it from a viewpoint of being non-judgmental. And then focusing one's attention on the emotions, thoughts, and sensations occurring in the present moment. So it really is about living in the present moment. If we think about all of our senses, so our smell, our sight, our taste, our touch, our hearing, as well as all the internal processes that go on within our mind, the emotions and thoughts that we feel and the sensations in our body. There's just so much change in all of that throughout the day. So it's about really trying to, when we can, bring ourselves back to the moment so that we can truly experience life as it is at that time. This is a really important point that I think kind of makes a lot of sense for me. Mindfulness meditation doesn't change life. It's not going to get rid of the difficulties that are perhaps in your life at the moment in terms of any losses or grief or changes that you might be experiencing. The life that we live remains as fragile and unpredictable as ever because that is the nature of life. It is unpredictable in good and bad ways. Change can occur at any time. Meditation changes the heart's capacity to accept life as it is. So it's really about teaching us how to accept life as it is, which is a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge, and it's not an easy one to achieve, and it does take some practice and kind of engaging in that. The one thing about mindfulness is even if you don't, really engage in it from a full perspective, you can still use it to help yourself to, become more resilient at different points in your day and your life. So a little bit more about kind of what is mindfulness. So mindfulness combines meditation, so just, for example, what we just done, breathing techniques, again, like what we just done, and paying attention to the present moment. So those are the kind of key elements to it. And just, I suppose, slightly repeating what was said before, it involves acceptance, meaning that we pay attention to our thoughts and feelings without judging them. I think as human beings, we are naturally judgmental towards our thoughts and feelings, being hard on ourselves for them, becoming very attached to them, without believing, for instance, that there's a right or wrong way to think or feel in a given moment. So it's really about releasing that idea that in that moment we should be feeling or behaving or thinking a certain way. So it's quite different to a lot of other therapeutic approaches where the focus is about changing things, where with mindfulness it's more about acceptance and being with what we're experiencing in that moment, which does sound a little bit scary and a little bit maybe counterintuitive. But as we talk about it a little bit more, I think it will become a bit clearer as to what it means. the thing about mindfulness, though, is that a lot of these ideas can really feel very abstract, and hard to get your head around until you start to, maybe read a bit more and practice it in your daily life. So I suppose don't expect yourselves by the end of the seminar to kind of feel like you know exactly what mindfulness is and how to integrate it into your life. It's more about taking what you can from it over your holiday period. And then if you are interested and feel like it's something you want to look into more, um, really looking into some of the references at the end or contacting myself to discuss it in more detail either. So just got a few wee diagrams now to make it a little bit more interactive and interesting. So just breaking it down again, mindfulness means paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. I like this little picture. It's funny because as human beings, being able to think a lot and contemplate and cognitively process things in the degree of intellect that we can has been a huge part of our evolutionary process, and enabled us to achieve so many different things. But the thing is that in the process along the way, sometimes we've lost some of the instinctive nature of actually being in the moment and living in the moment and enjoying the things that we can enjoy when things are good, and staying with the feelings that we have when perhaps we are feeling more having more suffering or struggling somewhat. And then, of course, so you've got this is obviously the person, and you've got this little dog just walking around, and all he's thinking about is the trees. So, if there's any animal lovers there, I'm sure you know this yourself. They just, focus on, what's in front of them at any one given time. And because of our, evolved intellectual capacity, sometimes we do lose the ability to find that simplicity in our lives again. That's so very important. So yeah, the idea is, are we mindful? So was our mindful, or are we mindful? So I do really like that one. And then the other idea really inherent, not only in mindfulness, but in a lot of the therapeutic approaches, if not all, that we use in life, and in clinical psychology, is the idea that thoughts are not facts, even though they tell you they are. When we have a thought, it's like it takes us over. And in that moment, we are convinced that that thought is the reality, that that's exactly the truth of the world and our situation and us or the people around us. But actually, all it is a thought. So the most of the time, we don't know if they're actually facts, yet we hold on to them with such intensity that, yeah, we just believe that they are, particularly when they're encapsulated in fear or sadness or worry or insecurities. So in this little picture, you see somebody sitting there in a slight meditative pose, and the little cloud thought thing says, you sit there with your eyes closed and sighs. And then she says, your point. And then the cloud, is that any way to treat your mother? So that's the kind of internal voice. And then she says, you're not my mother, you're a thought, a memory. And then again the thought, this is what I get after all I've done for you. So when this lady was meditating, she had an internal process of an old pattern in her mind where perhaps she's been told you're sitting there not doing anything, and thinking, oh, maybe I should do something or I shouldn't be doing this. But then she was able to take a step back from that thought rather than get caught up in it and let it spiral into wherever else it might go, maybe make her get up and stop meditating and think that she should go and wash the dishes or get something ready or do something from someone. And she's able to stop and go, you're not my mother, you're just a thought, a memory, and separate herself from the thought that she was having. So it's a really nice little diagram. Another little analogy, quicksand analogy. Pain demands to be felt. I was actually watching that movie. I don't know if anyone has seen it, called The Fault in Our Stars, the other night again. And I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it's about two kids with kind of teenagers with cancer. And a really, really beautiful, beautiful movie. And in the midst of it, there was a quote that one of the teenagers said. I can't remember which one, but it says, "Pain demands to be felt." When we suffer, whether it's emotionally or physically, that pain does demand to be felt. And a lot of the time, what we've learned to try and do is to distract ourselves from that pain, which is also a coping mechanism in itself, and comes in very, very handy a lot of the time. And but from the idea of mindfulness, the idea is that if we struggle and struggle and resist those kind of difficulties, that actually we get caught in like a quicksand idea where we're struggling and struggling and we're just kind of getting caught in it rather than allowing ourselves to stay and sit and be with whatever it is and gain some clarity over it by actually not resisting. So you can see in this little diagram, it's not the clearest, but I just wanted to put it in anyway, that this little boy says, "Oh no, this sand must still be wet from the rain. It's like quicksand. It's pulling me in." So that's kind of his thought. "I must struggle, but it's futile. The more I move, the deeper I go. It's hopeless." So the more he struggles and struggles and struggles, the deeper he's kind of getting lost in the quicksand. And then this little girl says, "Quit floundering, will you? You're ruining my sandcastle." So actually the little boy was only playing and pretending. And then he says, "Some people just lack an imagination." So in the end, actually, he was just pretending. Um, and the wee girl thought, that he was just floundering around. But the idea, I suppose, to go back to is this idea of struggling. It's futile sometimes. Sometimes it works. Sometimes we can resist and go off and do something else. But generally, at some point, it will come back again, as much as we wish that it won't. Sometimes it doesn't, and distraction can be a really good tool. But from a mindfulness perspective, to sit with a thought or a feeling or emotion and just let it be, can really help you to gain some clarity and understanding of what it is that you're experiencing in that moment. So I just wanted to go through a few tips, or a few, not tips, myths about mindfulness. Um, I suppose because mindfulness comes from a Buddhist philosophy, a lot of people might still feel like it's quite hippie-ish, although I have to say it is becoming more and more widespread and prolific within society, which is incredibly exciting. It's being used in schools and businesses. You can see on the internet how, chief executives from Google are incorporating it into their business. And it's really an exciting time for mindfulness. But of course, it still comes with a lot of preconceived ideas of what it actually consists of, given its more meditative and Buddhist background. So just to go through some of the top myths. Mindfulness is for taking a time out from life, quieting the mind, and reducing stress. So that's definitely a huge myth about mindfulness, that it actually is about taking time out. And sometimes, it is. It's about kind of giving yourself that break from life. But I suppose from what you were doing, or it could give you some time to relax. But it's really about being with life more rather than taking time out. And rather than it being about quieting the mind, it's more about being with the mind and observing it in a way that allows you to really experience what it is you're experiencing at any one time. So mindfulness isn't something that you have to go and lie down in your room for an hour every day and practice, and that's the only way that you do it. It's actually incorporated in everything we do in our life if we want it to be, which is quite exciting. So again, the idea that you need to carve out plenty of time in a serene, mindful space There are times when you're doing your mindful practice that it is important to have some quiet time. But again, you don't need to carve out much at all. It takes very little time every day to do a few meditations, and actually a lot of them you can even do when you're out and about, or if you have 5 minutes in your car, if you're socializing with friends, standing in a queue, and we'll go through some of those later. There's just so many ways that you can integrate it into your life. Again, there's a myth that it's about focusing or concentration. Mindfulness isn't about focusing in on any one particular thing. It's about observing exactly what's going on. Sometimes the different meditations will take you in different directions, or the different practices even will take you in different directions. But it really is about observing what is happening in that moment. Mindfulness is for people who are relaxed. It is for anyone. I think none of us are relaxed all of the time. You don't have to wait until you're relaxed to try and integrate mindfulness in your life. It's actually usually when you're not relaxed that you need it most, and then continue, practicing it generally as a way of life, even when you are perhaps feeling more relaxed. And last but not least, and I can definitely vouch for this one, mindfulness teachers are always mindful. Well, that is definitely not the case. I can tell you myself that as much as I practice mindfulness, I am most definitely not always mindful. That you try and integrate into your life, and there's always a lot more to learn, and it's I suppose kind of impossible in some ways